Hey y'all, and welcome to this week's From the Vault episode from the Magdalen House podcast. We are a 501c3 nonprofit organization based in Dallas, Texas, and known affectionately by many as Maggies. Every first and third Wednesday, we bring you a new release, and our From the Vault episodes, we share podcast releases from our 3 different podcast series, Recover Ed, Recovered, Interviews with Alcoholics, and Hope for the Family. Our podcasts aim to connect, inspire, and educate alcoholics, loved ones, and the community to the Magdalen House and the services we offer. We are so glad that you're here. Thanks for listening.
All right. Good morning, podcast listeners and next up participants and graduates. My name is Stephanie Crawford, and I'm the program manager here of Next Up, as well as the host of this podcast, Recovered, Interviews with Alcoholic Women. So, fun fact, our guest today was in your seat when we first started ever doing these podcasts. And if I remember correctly, she was a part of it before it was even a podcast. Like, it started off as like this thing in COVID because we were like looking for ways to connect and all this other stuff. And so like I, heard this meeting idea somewhere and I was like, oh, I'm going to do that for Next Step anyways. And so it just started as a way for women to connect with other women, and people loved them so much. They were like, can you start recording them? And I said, sure. And then now it's this podcast. So Michelle was there from the jump. And so how cool is it that she gets to be from the audience to podcast guest? Just a few nice words about Michelle. She is probably one of my favorite human beings on the planet. She has so much I don't know, what's the word I'm looking for? Pizzazz for life and fire for the program. And I just remember being in Next Step because I was back whenever I facilitated groups and just learning so much from her. Like whenever she would do her step presentations and when she would talk, and, one of my favorite stories, I'm sure she'll probably talk about it. If she doesn't, I'll ask her about it. But it's just one of those people that you see them shine so bright and you're like, who's your sponsor? Just so awesome to watch. And now we get to be friends, and she is just so amazing. And I know that you guys are going to get so much out of this. So Michelle, if you don't mind just introducing yourself and giving us a little bit of background information on yourself and what led you to get sober.
Well, hi guys, my name is Michelle, and I'm a very, very grateful recovered alcoholic. And I love Stephanie. Stephanie, I love you so much. She helped me she helped me through some hard times, but a little bit about myself. And, most importantly, there's a line in the book on page 158. It says, and in finding God, she had found, well, I'm going to read it as she had found God, and in finding God, she found herself. So that's kind of, my motto. I've been praying about this, that God would use me as his vessel today and to help, you ladies. My primary purpose is to carry this message to those that are still suffering. But just to qualify myself, real quickly, I came into the program in 2001 as an atheist. I found God, on 45, it says higher power, which will solve your problem, and he did. And as long as I did the work, and of course I go in and out. I'm going to get to the end here. I always knew I had issues with outside substances. I never was convinced I was an alcoholic, and I held on to it to the very end. It's a progressive disease, and it was very progressive in the end. In the end, I am laying in a bed, drinking, blacking out, passing out, and booze hidden all over the house. My family pours it down the drain and hides my keys. I grab my wallet, take off running, buying booze, hiding it everywhere. My daughter, and I'm going to get emotional because a big part of my story is my family and my 2 girls. And my daughter's standing over me. She had gotten braces, and they were going to be on for 5 years. And we had planned this day. It was February the 3rd. I remember it. She was getting them off. I couldn't go because I was drunk. And she comes back and she's standing over me. And she's got this beautiful smile and she's telling me I'm ruining her life. I was ruining everybody's lives. So I ended up going to treatment. That phenomenon of craving was so strong that I left 2 treatment centers back to back AMA. They kept taking me somewhere else and I kept leaving and trying to go buy booze. At the second one, I am not, my family's done. I'm not getting it. And I'm laying on the ground. I actually crawl up under a bed, which is crazy. And I'm laying on the ground, like just, God, please help me. Please help me. I don't know what's wrong with me. I cannot get this. I'm hurting everybody. And I take off on foot that night. But the crazy thing that happened is I don't even know where I am. I'm somewhere in Fredericksburg and I'm on some ranch. So there's nothing around me. And I'm walking towards these lights and I turn on this road and a policeman pulls over. I'm throwing up only because I'm just completely hysterical. I want my booze. You know how that goes. He calls an ambulance to come pick me up. And I had a sweet nurse and a sweet policeman. I called my husband. I'll never forget this. My daughter had a golf tournament the next day and she had to be at the school at 6 a.m. And I told Brad, it was like 2:00 in the morning. I told my husband, hey, I need you to come get me. I'm at the ER. And he's like, what? And I told him, I left because they were being mean to me, that whole thing. I told my husband to give my 15-year-old daughter the keys to my car to get herself to the golf tournament. And he needed to come take care of me. And that's how sick I was. And my husband said, Michelle, I am not doing that. I am done. Figure it out. And he hung the phone up. And I was like, whoa, I'm screwed. For the first time, he's one of us. So he was always, understood what was going on with me. And I probably used it and manipulated it. But for the first time, I knew that I had to do something. I had been to a meeting that night, and this is my book, and I had a girlfriend, and she wrote her number in the back of my book, and she lived there in Kerrville, came and got me, and she got me some things that I needed, and she got me to another treatment, and that was the hand of God. I had prayed for that earlier. I had prayed for God to help me, and he got me into a treatment center there that could handle some things. I found a sponsor who had serenity, freedom, and peace. And I wanted what she had. And I just grabbed a hold of her so tightly because I knew that the program worked. I knew that God was the answer and working these steps was the answer. And in the beginning, it was me walking around all day, repeating to myself, stay present in the moment, stay focused on God, stay present in the moment, stay focused on God, because my mind was just crazy with all of these things. I realized that I didn't know anything. I had no idea how to stay sober. I had no idea how to live a life without substances. My sponsor I just kept following her instruction. I did what she said. I was there for 90 days, like 30 in treatment and then 60 at in an IOP type setting, sober living. My daughters weren't talking to me. I wanted them to talk to me so badly. I would call me these gut-wrenching messages saying, I love you. I miss you. Please talk to me. Please just call me. And my sponsor said, stop calling them, Michelle, and let God deal with them and let them come back on their own time, which was foreign for me because I wanted to control everything. I was all about control and it was all about me. And, I would come home from treatment in the past and it'd be like, I'm sober now. Everything's great, and they're like, it's not great. And this time they were pissed. I remember when my youngest daughter did finally talk to me, and she's living with her stepdad. Her stepdad's doing all of these things for her. Neither one, her dad's an alcoholic. I'm an alcoholic. Brad's an alcoholic too, but he's sober at the time, and she has a lot of I really know the damage that I did and I didn't realize it. But when she finally talks to me, she was very grown up and she said, Mom, I don't want to talk about you. I don't want to talk about your recovery. I want to talk about me. And I was like, okay. And she said, and I don't care how long you have to stay down there, but don't come back until you're done. And I was like, yes, ma'am. And she was the parent most of her life from 8 to 15, almost 16. I drank alcoholically. And then I came back from Kerrville, and it was I had worked the steps, and, Katie is a great sponsor. I love her. And I knew that I needed to find somebody to work with. Because I knew that's what I needed to do. Because when I was in treatment, I journal a lot, and I try to listen to God and not, lip service. And one of the things that he really impressed upon me is, Michelle, it doesn't matter what anybody else is doing. You have to work this program, and you have to help other women. I knew that's what I needed to do. I'm home. COVID's hit. Everything's shut down. And what am I doing? I'm stacking away 20s in my wallet when I go to the grocery store. I'm starting that relapse thought. And I'm not comfortable in my own skin. I'm just very kind of irritable and restless. And I have this moment of clarity out on my front porch. And I said, God, relapse is not an option. What do I have to do? What do I have to do? Show me what I need to do. Because I was willing to do anything. And I came in, and I know in the book, it says, Bill would call the preacher. So I called my brother-in-law and got the number to his preacher. He thought I was crazy and delusional, but anyways. And so I called my sponsor and told her what I had done. And I said, Katie, I'm in lockdown. And she said, well, I have a friend of mine that was my roommate in Maggie's, because she went to the Magdalen House. I called her, and it was like 10 o'clock in the morning. And then I screened for next step. I talked to Stephanie, and I was on pretty quickly. I didn't have to wait long at all that afternoon. And I'm here to tell you guys, next step was amazing for me. Y'all are in a great place. I did the check-ins every morning. I, tried to participate always. It taught me how to carry the message, do a foundation meeting. And a lot of things happened while I was in next step. My husband relapsed. He had 9 months, and he relapsed. I remember calling my sponsor, and I was like, Brad's drunk. And she's like, I don't care. I want to hear about you. How are you dealing with this? Because Brad is Brad, and God's going to take care of Brad. And Michelle just needs to stay present in the moment and stay focused on God. And, that was the best. My sponsor is phenomenal. She's helped me through so many things, but that's what she taught me. Michelle, get out of the way and let God deal with Brad. And that's what I did for the first time. And he drove off to treatment with somebody I barely knew. I didn't hear from him for 3 weeks. Wow. When Michelle gets out of the way and lets God work. My husband now works for a recovery center. He's about to celebrate. Well, I guess I'll have 2 years in February and have 2 years in June. Our life is amazing. And I'm just so grateful for the program. And I carry the message, and I have a sponsor that has a sponsor. I remember when I was coming back from Kerrville in May-ish of 2020, and I had this thought of, I have a degree in sociology, and my intent was always to go back and get my LPC to be a counselor. But I was like, okay, everybody that goes to treatment wants to be a counselor, right? And so on the way back from Kerrville, I started praying, and I said, God, this is what's in my mind, but I don't know if this is what you want for me. And I said, if you want me to go back to school, you're going to have to open some huge doors, because I really need to hear you speak on this, because I really need to know if this is your will or mine. He started opening big doors, and I get choked up because when you seek him, he does amazing things. I had a horrible GPA with my undergrad. I wrote a letter about my addiction and who I was, and I was transparent. I'm in grad school now to become counselor, and it's just amazing. I have severe dyslexia and ADD, and I pray for God, help me with this. Help me prioritize, help me see what I need to do in school. And he just does. He's amazing. And my life is definitely, my sponsor kept telling me when I was doing the work, because I kept talking about the past when I was in treatment, she kept telling me, Michelle, it's going to be better than it ever was. It's going to be better than it ever was. And she told me that all the time. And it is better than it ever was. So.
so good. I mean, y'all, I don't know if you guys are feeling inspired already, but I am for sure. I've seen so much of your journey that like I don't really know where to start as far as questions go, because there's so much that I think is important to talk about. One of the things that I just want to clarify though is whenever Michelle was calling the preacher, she was looking for another alcoholic to help.
Yes.
So like that's like desperation, right? Like in Next Step, we're like, what are you guys doing to help other alcoholics? What are you doing to like make yourself available for sponsees? Like that is like some dedication, right? Like really searching out somebody to help. And I just think that that's just amazing. I know I definitely want to talk about the relationships with your daughter and stuff, but I think I might wait. Can you briefly mentioned coming in as an atheist? Do you mind telling your like step 2 experience?
No.
Because now you have such a powerful relationship with God. Oh, just like seeking him out to help you with school. I mean, it's just amazing. But you weren't always like that. So do you mind just talking about that briefly, please?
No, not at all. My mother was youth minister of her church. So I grew up knowing about God, and going to church and that kind of thing. However, when I was 18, she got cancer and died when I was 18. And it was absolutely devastating because I couldn't wrap my head around the fact that a loving God would take a woman who was committed to him. I'm thinking on this religious spectrum. And so things started getting worse and worse and worse for me in my life. And I was like, there's no way there's a God. I remember my sister getting baptized and she wanted me to go. And then afterwards, she told me she'd been praying for me. And I said, the belief of God is the root of all evil. That's what I told her. And she broke down crying. And it's amazing to me that God loved me after all those things. I'm about to go to my first meeting. Because my oldest daughter's husband had just gotten out of prison and he's like, you need AA. And I was like, I don't need AA. And lo and behold, I did. So I'm sitting, I go to this group and it just happens to be a group that, a lot of the women that sponsor the ladies there go to. And I'm in this meeting and they're talking about 1, 2, and 3. And it's on page 45. And I love this page. And it talks about lack of power. It's our dilemma, and I'm following. I'm like, yeah, I don't have any power. I don't have any power. And so, this book is about where and how to find that power. And it goes on and says, this is, find a power greater than yourself, which will solve your problem. Great. Solve my problem. That's awesome. And then it goes on to say, and this means, of course, we're going to talk about God. Right when they said that, I threw my hand up. I said, I don't believe in God. They said, you don't have to, they said, it's your own concept of God and you just have to be willing. And I was like, literally, okay, I'll try anything once. That's exactly what it said. God loves me so much because my relationship with him began as an intimate father type daughter relationship. And that's what I have in this program. And it's grown into a dependence because, I've tried so many times to live without him and it doesn't go well. But I remember my very first third step. It was really foreign for me. I was on my knees in a church, with my sponsor and we're saying this prayer. And I stood up and she said, God has an umbrella over you. He's catching the rain. Get busy with the rest of the work. And I started seeing his hand everywhere. It was like somebody just ripped, like shingles fell off my eyes or something, these blinders. And it wasn't a religious, it was a spiritual experience. It was the first time I had ever relied on God. And because of that experience, even when I'm sick, when I relapse or go back out and want to do things my way, I could still hear his voice. And I would be like, yes, I just want to do it my way right now. And he would say, who's your God, Michelle? And I was like, booze, because that's what was going on. Alcohol was my master. It says that in Bill's story. And that was absolutely true. God was still there talking to me, but man, what's crazy to me, I get so emotional when I talk about God, but what's crazy to me is that he meets you wherever you are. And if you work this program to the best of your ability, it's this intimate, loving relationship, and he will guide you. We have lots of talks. I'll be about to say something and I'll hear this little voice. What's your motive behind saying that, Michelle? I was like, not good. Then don't say it. But yeah, it was a beautiful relationship, and it's been going for a while, but it's amazing that what he can do whenever you make that decision. And step 3 is just a decision. I used to overcomplicate that so many times, thinking that I had to have some big epiphany, and it's just not the case. I'm making a decision to prepare to go on a journey with God. 4 through 9 is preparing for this journey. We're cleaning up the wreckage of our past. And then steps 10, 11, and 12 is where we're actually on a journey with God.
I love that like little breakdown that you just did too. That was amazing and such a beautiful story. Okay. I kind of want to, I don't know. Because the relationship you have with your sponsor is so great. And I remember whenever you told your story the first time, I heard you talk about how your sponsor would be like, Michelle, quit talking. And I was like, oh my God, that's so great. But my little feelings would be so hurt. So can you just talk about that part and just like how like that was kind of like some tough love and why you needed it and like why, do you know what I'm asking?
Yes, I know exactly what you're saying. I think that God, I truly believe this, God prepares a person for us to guide us through the work. That's why we all have different personalities. And my sponsor, it was like, I saw her, she's way younger than me. We're very different people, but she is perfect for me, and she's loving, but direct. And she must have told me 500 times, because if you guys could have seen me in the beginning, I was asking a question before I ever finished the first one. And I was worrying about where I was going to live, what I was going to do. I'm here in treatment. How's all this going to play out? My kids want to, and she's like, stop, stop. And she's the one who kept telling me, stay present in the moment and stay focused on God. And I finally learned, what I started doing was stopping talking. You know what I mean? And I started listening to her. I remember doing, I don't know why I'm saying this, but whenever we went to do my 5th step, one of my fears was telling my sponsor everything. I just had all these crazy thoughts and things. But I wanted what she had. And I was willing to go to any lengths to get it. And so that demanded rigorous honesty. And what she's always told me is, she said, Michelle, a lie will take you back out. She said, we don't have the luxury of lying. So I demand, it's got to be rigorous honesty. And that has always stuck with me. And so I'll lie to her, a little white lie, and I'll hang up the phone and I'm like, oh, I'm going to drink over that. I'm going to drink over that. And I pick up the phone and I said, I just lied to you. She just laughs. Our relationship in the beginning was very, it was like she was just trying to keep me on task and keep me focused and teach me these little principles and get me through the work. What she taught me was that, the only thing that's going to keep me sober is God, and that stay present in the moment and staying focused on Him, be a woman of integrity. When I got up for my 3rd step prayer, she said, what does it mean to be a woman of integrity? And, it's so beautiful, because whenever I went to make my amends to my youngest daughter, I said, I want to be a mother of integrity. If I tell you I'm going to do something, I want to do it. I want to show up the way a mother should. And, she had me, do amends so differently than I've ever done. I mean, God truly put her in my life. But the cool thing about what's happened in our relationship is that we've become friends. She shares some of her struggles with me. She's one of those kind of sponsors that I'll call her, and I know that I'm being selfish, and I know all this stuff, and I know I have a right to be angry, all those things. And I'll call her to 10th step and she'll go, I get it, Michelle, I get it. But, and she'll share what she's hearing. I see that you are wanting what you want. Do you think you're being selfish? She says it very kindly. And we just have a beautiful relationship. And we talk, twice a week on the phone. She's in Kerrville, but we talk on the phone. And even if there's nothing going on, I send her my nightly reviews. Stephanie helped me with my nightly reviews. But I do them on, on my phone and send them to her. But yeah, it's like, I've never had this good of a sponsor for me. I truly believe that God put her in my life for a reason.
I also believe that like a sponsor relationship is like divinely inspired. Absolutely. Okay. Do you have, I should have prepared you for this, but do you have the, like the poem that your daughter wrote?
Oh yes, I do. Absolutely. I love this.
Because, like in the beginning, like you were saying, like your daughter was telling you you're ruining her life.
Yes.
I know she didn't speak to you, like I heard you, cry. Like another daughter had said, like, Mom has never been sober around my kids. And I saw you for every day for like 3 months. I know how much your children mean to you. And so from going from that to where you are today, can you just talk about the process that led you to where you guys are today? And do you mind sharing what your daughter wrote? Is that okay?
I haven't pulled up. So yeah, it was a really dark time whenever they weren't talking to me, and I had to just surrender. I'm powerless over my daughters. I'm powerless over lots of things. I thank God that Katie was a sponsor for me, because she really taught me that. She said, let them come to you. And when you're with them, do not talk about yourself. That was a big thing. Do not talk about yourself. Do not talk about the program. Ask them questions. She goes, Michelle, it's time for you to show up as a mother. And that hit me real hard. Whoa. When I first came home, my youngest daughter was having nightmares every night about me relapsing. She literally suffered from some PTSD from all of the years. She was that hero child that took care of me, and she never got to be a child. She said something to me the other day. We were in the car, and she said, Mom, I don't know how to be a normal teenager now. She goes, I've always taken care of you and Brad. I was like, oh, so little by slowly, she was very angry, and what she needed was to see me working the program. It wasn't about me talking. It wasn't about lip service. It was about me showing up, being engaged in her life, and being there for her. Same thing with my oldest. My oldest is, she'll be 30 in August. And she had just a very, hard, rough life of me. I had outside issues and drinking when she was growing up. And she, when she finally did call me, it took her the longest. And she has 2 of my grandkids that I just adore. When she finally called me, I didn't talk about myself at all. My sponsor had prepared me for it. And it was on my birthday, and I just asked about her. And then her and the kids ended up coming to Kerrville, doing swimming in the Guadalupe and stuff. And I started to slowly rebuild, and they were watching me. They were watching my actions. And because it's not about, I'm a good talker, I'm a master manipulator. But it's all about showing up for people today. It's all, being of maximum service to God and those about me. When I'm out of myself and I'm doing that, I get all these rewards. My daughter, I did make an amends to my youngest. And I just want to share one more thing before I move on. My relationship with my husband, he is a very bad alcoholic as well. And my kids hated him. My sister hated him because of the things he did and when he was drinking. When you work this program to the best of your ability, and you really do this thing, and you trust in God, clean house, work with others, the things that happen. My sister, we were at a pep rally, and my sister sat beside Brad and not me. I mean, it's miraculous. She talks to him. My kids love Brad. he's kind of, Patty Lee said that Brad's more of a father to her than her own dad. And Mackenzie calls Brad every time when she's got a problem in her house or car, but it's just crazy because I never thought that we would ever heal. And it's just crazy when I get out of the way and let God work. But here's the tumbler. Anytime we went anywhere, Mother had her tumbler in hand. And before I start, guys, my daughter wrote this short story for a college class, dual credit class. And she wrote it on, it's so crazy. I just realized that she wrote it on 2/5 of 2021. My sobriety date is 2/7 of 2020. So this was right before my year. But it says, anytime we went anywhere, Mother had her tumbler in hand. Anytime she got drunk, she took a gulp out of her tumbler. Sometimes it made it worse, sometimes better, and sometimes it made her sleep. She liked to be alone when she drank from it, but she always liked to be alone because she always drank from it. She used to go weeks without it, and then she couldn't go an hour. The tumbler began to make her anger worse. It never helped, but nothing did. We begged her to stop. We pleaded that she was killing herself, but in her eyes, she didn't do any wrong. That was until one summer day when she lost her tumbler and had no way to get another one. She was forced to stop drinking from it and went insane. We all thought the tumbler was making her worse, but we didn't know this would happen when it was gone. She agreed to get help from something other than a tumbler. She was gone for 2 months, coming back only to have surgery with a pill bottle in hand. We thought she was better, but she fell even deeper into her pill bottle than she had fallen into her tumbler. She then bought a new tumbler, and her pill bottle and tumbler never left her hands. She lay in bed.
So I think that just gives so much hope, because I know whenever I was getting sober, one of the things that people would tell me all the time is well, your daughter's so young, she won't remember any of this, which doesn't make it any less painful, by the way. It still is very painful to be away from your child. Yeah. But I think you give so much hope for the mothers who are I've done this to my kids their entire life, and just the power of this program and the relationships that God can restore is just amazing.
Before we move on from the family I just want to bring up one thing on page 124. And I love this. This is one of my favorite pages because it's with the family afterwards. And it's Henry Ford once made a wise remark to the effect that experience is a thing of supreme value in life. That is true only if one is willing to turn the past to good account. We grow by our willingness to face and rectify errors and convert them into assets. The alcoholic's past thus becomes the principal asset of the family, and frequently it is almost the only one. This painful past may be of infinite value to other families still struggling with their problems. And then I'm going to skip down a little bit, and it says, clinging to the thought that in God's hands, the dark past is the greatest possession you have, the key to life and happiness for others. With it, you can avert death and misery for them. Just love the part about becomes the family's principal asset, because I'm getting choked up again. My daughter sat on the chair a couple of months ago, and she said, Mom, I'm so glad you guys are alcoholics. I was like, whoa. And she said, because our family is so good today. And she said, and she watches and compares it to other families. And, when you practice the principles in your home, recovery is infectious and it bleeds on through to everyone in the house. She actually is very loud about our past and to other kids. She helps kids at school. She is, I'm not going to say this for sure, but I think she's talking to a woman about working the steps in Al-Anon just so she can help others. She has a real passion for that because she's like, there is hope. I went through this too. It's so cool how, I was the sick one, but when I'm sick, the whole house gets sick. When I get well, everybody gets well. It's like recovery homeostasis.
I love it so much. Thank you.
Yeah. And I love the direct, my sponsor was very adamant, you get to show up as a mother. You're not going to show up as your alcoholic. You're not going to talk about your alcoholism. You're going to show up as a mother. You're going to ask them about their lives. You're going to engage in what they're doing. You're going to watch movies with your kids, do things that mothers do. And, I mentioned earlier when Patty Lee, she said, I'm so used to always worrying about you. I don't know how to be a teenager, but she's learning and, she's leaving for college next September or August. It's going to be I'm going to be an empty nester.
Michelle, you talked about, you said I did amends differently than I ever did before. Do you have a particular amends story or anything that you want to share? Or what was different this time?
I have a lot of amends stories that were, so, Katie had me do the steps in a way, she had me really write things out first off in my inventory. And I got to tell you guys this too. On the inventory, I was so tired of feeling this way and I knew what worked. I sat down and did my inventory in a day, busting it out. I'm getting through this work. And I was rigorously honest. And I get to the part, I mentioned that I had a fear of telling my sponsor everything. And, she had me write it out. So I'm afraid of telling you everything. Why? I mean, what happens when you don't tell me everything? Well, I get drunk. What happens when you do tell me everything? I have peace, serenity, and I'm doing what I think God would have me. That's God's will. That's step 3, right? In action. So I'm doing those things. And one of the fears the reason why I didn't want to tell her everything is because I have issues with outside substances, pretty much anything that changes the way I feel, I love it, and I'm going to do it to the nth degree. And so I had, so I don't know, you never have this, but I had basically taken something that wasn't mine and and it was from a woman that I truly loved and adored. And I had a very intimate relationship with her. We were really good friends, and my sponsor knew this woman and she's very close to her. And so I just, told her this is what I did. And I was so afraid to make an amends, and she had me do it. And I'm on the way to make the amends. And I am, just saying, God, I don't want to do this. I don't want to do this. And it was all fear driven. I had caused so many problems. It was just, it was a big amends. And I'm driving and I'm like, I'm doing this surely out of obedience to you because I want what this book offers. I get there and it was one of the best amends. It was the first time. So this time around, when I'm working the steps, I'm going to be honest with you guys. A lot of the time I was going through the motions because I knew what would happen in the end, but I was not having that spiritual experience yet. And, when I got to her house and I did this emotion, we both just cried and it was so healing. And I've had truly the presence of God, and that's whenever my sobriety really turned a corner. Another big one that I made was with my youngest daughter. Whew. I think I told y'all a little bit about that. And, of course I started crying, and today she'll tell me, because I've made a big point about being a mother of integrity and showing up the way that a mother should. I said, I've been a source of chaos, drama, and instability in your life. I've been selfish. I was wrong when I drank again. I said, I haven't been a mother of integrity. I haven't shown up in the way that a mother should. And I even said, I have not been a good mother, very honest, very direct. Today, she remembers that and she'll say, you're a mother of integrity today. So it's a big thing with us. And then I have one more that I really got to tell you about. I had stole, outside substances from my stepdaughter because I was, I'm like a crazed lunatic pretty much when I'm not in the program. And I'm on my way to make this amends, and something comes over me because I always pray on the way. And I just start sobbing and I just start crying out to God. I was like, God, I have been so wrong, because I'm seeing his hand and I'm seeing what he's doing for me. And I'm just, so grateful. And I'm like, I've been so wrong and I need to make an amends to God. And I had a very intimate amends with God. And it was like, wow, gratitude came up, and just thankfulness. Wasn't the mother I should have been. I wasn't the wife I should have been. I wasn't the stepmother I should have been. And I get to do that differently today.
So beautiful. The whole time, whenever you were talking, I was like, I am so lucky that I get to do this for a living, y'all.
For real.
I get to talk to such inspiring women every week who are I'm like, as soon as I get off this call, I'm thanking God. As soon as I get off this call, I'm praising God, right? Just to feel so inspired by the women I talk to. It's just phenomenal. And I hope everybody who listens is having that same reaction to this conversation. We're getting to the top of the hour, but I do want to ask you about sponsorship and working with others. Can you just talk briefly about your experience with that before I ask you the wrap-up question?
Yes. So, when I was in treatment, that's one of the things that, I was journaling about that God was revealing to me is that because I have this crazy past, and if I can use it to help somebody, if God's using me as his vessel to help somebody, wow, that's blows me away. And so that's my primary purpose in life today. And what I found is that when I'm carry the message, which I carry the message once a week, I have a commitment, but when I'm carrying the message, I'm not, they're helping me. It's I'm blown away. I can be in the absolute worst funk, go to a treatment center, and I'm blown away. God it's like a spiritual experience. There's nothing like sitting across from a woman who is hopeless and giving her some hope. It's wow. Sponsorship and carrying the message is something that I have to do. It's detrimental. I have several sponsees. It's so funny. I have one sponsee that was my very first sponsee. She's still my sponsee, which is so cool. And we kind of laugh sometimes about how much I've changed in my sponsorship, because, you're finding your way in the beginning. Sponsorship is about walking shoulder to shoulder. It's, sharing and guiding. I have some great women that I get to sponsor, and it's so funny. I was on a meeting with one this morning, and she said something I had said that I had forgotten about. I was like, oh, so, it's reciprocal. Seeing the fruits of recovery until I incorporated those things in. And I'm going to do a little next sidebar here, because it really teaches you how to 1, 2, 3, how to guide someone through the work. And I love it. There's a line on page 64, and it's when Bill and Bob were leaving. I can't remember. I think they were leaving Ohio, and they had just started a little group there. They were like, don't leave. What are we going to do without you? He says, but I'll tell you, for me, my truth is that I didn't really, really start the fellowship you crave. And, whenever I'm saying present in the moment, saying focused on God, he sends me the women that I'm right for. I am so blessed to get to work with wonderful women. And it is truly, truly a blessing, Yeah, well, I'll throw this in there. I'll tell you guys this. For me, being a sponsor is absolutely detrimental. I've never had I've been in and out. I've worked the steps so many times, and I was always a box checker. I didn't want to be inconvenienced to work with women, or, I didn't want to go carry the message or those things, but it is a must for me today. And it has really changed everything about recovery. So I want to talk about my favorite step is step 1. And the reason why is because I never fully conceded to my innermost self that I was an alcoholic. I could manipulate my way out of the first two, those two questions on page 44. But, it says on, we had to concede to our innermost selves that we were alcoholics. The delusion that we could drink like other people had to be smashed. And it finally got smashed for me. So So the amazing thing was this time in treatment, I was at a hard step one. Like I always had step one here, but I didn't have it here in my heart. To me, my husband says it, and he's right to the T. Step one can't just be knowledge. Step one has to be an emotion that I feel, and it has to be 100% for me. That's how it worked for me. And I was 100% at step one for the first time in my life. There was absolutely no lurking notion that I could drink like other people. The delusion was smashed. I didn't know what it was going to look like. I knew that I could never drink again because I was actually scared to drink again because the phenomenon of craving was so strong this time. It's a progressive illness, and it was so debilitating that I was petrified. So I started, working these steps. And the cool thing is, I love in the book where it says it has placed us in a position of neutrality over alcohol. See, God's restored my sanity around booze. I absolutely know I can't drink like other people, and I don't try. I have no desire. When I'm at an event, my oldest daughter loves wine, and I'll be sitting on the couch with her. She's drinking wine, and I absolutely have that position of neutrality today. And it's so cool. I did not ever think that would happen. I love step one. That's my favorite step. And it's because I finally took it from here and I felt it in my core.
Michelle, can I just tell you something?
Yes.
So when I chair meetings when I lead meetings at Maggie's, literally one of the things I say, I stole from one of your step presentations, which was the definition of being restored to sanity, which is, I know I don't drink like other people. I don't try to drink like other people. And I don't care that I can't drink like other people. Like, it doesn't bother me. And I got that from you, which is so cool, right? Like, we just learn from each other. I don't know. But I want to ask the wrap-up question, and I want to also just say to our listeners, if y'all have loved this, please leave us a review and let us know. Like, the reviews really do. And this is for, you guys who are in the live audience. The reviews really do help us reach more alcoholic women, which is what we are trying to do. We are trying to give hope to the alcoholic woman that is suffering. And then I can't even tell you, like, we've gotten referrals from Maggie's to Maggie's from this podcast because they heard the podcast somewhere and they heard these women and how happy and joyous and free they were. And then they found out that, these services at Maggie's were free. And so your review makes a difference. I cannot say that enough. It's not about the listens. It's about the women that we can help. And so if you feel like this podcast episode has been inspiring to you, it's going to inspire somebody else. How selfish of us not to share that, right?
Yes.
So
Sure.
My wrap-up question for you. Also, if you've loved this, please screenshot this episode, upload it to Instagram, let us know what your takeaways are, and tag the Magdalen House. We just love to see it, and somebody else might need to hear it, hear those same things too. So, Michelle, if for some reason my phone freezes, I love you so much, and this has been amazing. If you could leave the listeners and our next step participants and everybody else with one takeaway, like, if you don't hear anything I say, hear this, what is the takeaway that you'd want to leave us with?
There's so many that are coming to mind, but grab a sponsor who has what you want and let them guide you through this work. I was completely hopeless, a hopeless state of mind and body. And I doubted that it would ever work. But if you work these steps to the best of your ability, and on step 11, spend some quiet time with God, and listen to him too. He will guide you. If you seek him and on that intimate relationship, he will appear and he will show up big for you. And my one other thing, I told you I had too many, I talked about it a little bit before. Steps 1 through 3 are like, we're making decisions, and we're making the decision to go on a journey with God. And in 4 through 9, you're cleaning up to prepare for that journey. You're getting rid of all the things that are blocking you from the sunlight of the Spirit. don't stop before you get to 10, 11, and 12, because that's where it really happens. That's where the miracles happen. If you work this program with a desperation of a drowning man, you will absolutely get the results.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, guys. I will see you all later. We're having a next step workshop today at 11. So I might see you guys again there. I love you, Michelle. This was fantastic.
Love you. Thank you so
Bye.
much. Have a great day.
We hope you've enjoyed this From the Vault re-release of the Magdalen House podcast. Tune in every first and third Wednesday for a new release from one of our 3 podcast series. To learn more about the Magdalen House and the services we offer, visit magdalenhouse.org or follow us on your favorite social media channels by searching for the Magdalen House.